Welcome to Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean. We are on location in beautiful Morgan Hill, California at One Off Customs to show you how to fix a common problem with the third generation Toyota 4Runner. Toyota usually does most things right, but they definitely got it wrong in terms of the front differential fill plug and drain plug on these Toyota 4Runners. They used a Allen head drain plug instead of a nice hex bolt drain plug, and they're prone to strip because you get your Allen socket in there, and for whatever reason over time it just gets super locked in there and people end up stripping the Allen head, and then you're stuck in the situation that my buddy Ash is in. He stripped his drain plug, and now we're going to show you some options of being able to get that drain plug out and get a new drain plug back in. Here's the offender. This is the drain plug on the front differential on the third generation Toyota 4Runner. You can see that it's stripped out, and what we're going to do is we're going to weld in a Allen head socket so we can get this thing off. Wes is done with his part, and what he did for us is he welded in an Allen head socket onto the differential drain plug. Then Ash got on there with a 1/2-inch breaker bar, and he was able to break it free fairly easily. And I think the reason why he was able to break it free fairly easily was because of the heat from the welding. And that got me thinking that the heat had a lot to do with the fact that Ash was able to break free this drain plug a lot easier because he was struggling to get it off initially, and that's what led up to it becoming stripped. And the fact that he was able to break it free without much force leads me to believe that the heat did a lot to loosen up the bond of the plug from the differential. When you find that you're struggling to get it broken free, it might behoove you to apply a little heat with a butane torch and then try it again, because once you strip it, you're in the situation that we were in. We had to figure out a way to get this plug out. Try it first with no heat. If it's fighting you before you start to strip the Allen head plug, apply a little heat with the butane torch and then try it again. And then maybe you'll be able to get it out without stripping it. And just to point out, this is where the fill plug is. A good rule of thumb is when you're doing maintenance on your differentials or your transfer case or your manual transmission, you want to make sure you could first get the fill plug out first, because if you get the drain plug out first and you drain the gear oil and then realize you're having difficulty getting the fill plug out, now you've got an empty differential, and that's not good. So always make sure that you can break free the fill plug first before you attempt to break free the drain plug. We're back at the Timmy the Toolman Studios in San Jose, California, and Ash is now going to take the drain plug out, and we're going to drain his differential so we can refill it with some fresh gear oil. Ash already has the fill plug loose, and now he's going to open the drain plug, and we're going to start draining this.
Fill plug is out.
Okay. Whoop. Here's the drain plug out with the Allen head socket welded to it. You can see the weld that Wes put on there. So if you stripped either your fill plug or your drain plug, this is one solution: welding an Allen head socket to the plug so you can get it out. Another common fix is a person will take a nut and weld it to the face of the plug so they can get a socket on there. That's an actual 14mm nut. Maybe you can get away with something bigger. You put a couple tack welds on there to where you can get on there with a socket and break it free, and then you just either continue to use that plug or you replace it with another one. Another way to get either the fill plug or the drain plug out is people take a cold chisel and they strike it in the counterclockwise direction to break the plug free from the differential. This has a little bit higher possibility of maybe messing up if the strike glances off the plug and goes into your differential, but the differential is pretty thick and beefy, so even if you drove the chisel into the differential, it's probably going to be okay. But this was actually the technique a Toyota mechanic did for me when I first bought my truck. I stripped out my drain plug. I didn't know exactly how to tackle it. I didn't have a welder. So I took it to Toyota and they got it free, and I had a conversation with the mechanic, and the mechanic said this was the technique he used. He used a chisel and a hammer, knocked it in the counterclockwise position, lefty-loosey, and he got it free. It's always good practice to replace the fill plug washer and the drain plug washer when you're doing work like this. The drain plug washer and the fill plug washer are different. The drain plug washer is actually a big copper washer, and it looks like that. The fill plug washer is the same washer that you would use for the fill and drain plug for the rear differential. It's a crush style washer. You put the flat side towards the plug and the rounded side towards the differential. Ash has the drain plug back in, and it would behoove you to not use a lot of leverage and a lot of force putting this thing back in, because at some point in the future you're going to want to drain it again for regular maintenance, and you're not going to want to fight it and potentially strip it again. Get it snug, get it fairly tight, but don't crank on it. Ash is just using one of these little auto parts store pumpers to get the gear oil out of the container and into the fill plug of the differential. He's using a 80W90, but you could also use 7592. So this could be a fairly tedious process because the little pump only moves so much fluid at a time. You're going to get a little bit of an arm workout doing this, especially when you're filling your rear differential. The rear differential takes a lot longer because it takes more fluid. It is helpful to know the fluid capacities of what you're working on. With differentials, with manual transmissions, with transfer cases, it's a pretty simple process. You fill it with gear oil till it starts spilling out the bottom of the threads of the fill hole, and then you know you're done. While it's nice to know the capacity so you know how much to purchase, when you fill it on level ground and you fill it until the gear oil starts spilling out and you're done. If you found this video, it's most likely because you were searching for solutions for a stripped drain plug. If you just have a really stuck drain or fill plug on the front differential of your third generation Toyota 4Runner and you're looking for answers, here's what I would suggest you do first. Number one, get the appropriate size Allen head socket. You're going to find that the fill and drain plugs on these third generation 4Runners, it's either going to be a 10 millimeter or it's going to be a 12 millimeter. You use the appropriate size ratchet and you try to break it free. If it's not breaking free for you, before you start to strip it, stop and try using a little heat with a torch and some MAP gas. Apply some heat to the plug and then try to break it free with your ratchet and your Allen head socket. If you're still not getting it, try a little more heat and then try again. Penetrating oil might or might not help you. I know a lot of people that have tried penetrating oil and it did nothing to really help their situation. Those plugs just have the ability to get really locked into the front differential. Now, if you found this video and you've already done the deed of stripping the plug, whether it's your fill plug or your drain plug, there's a few ways to go about fixing the situation. Number one, you could follow the lead that Ash and Wes and I chose, and that's welding an Allen head socket right into the plug, and it worked great. Your other choice is to grab a nut that's not too big that you could actually weld on each side of it, tack a nut to there, get the right size socket on there, and then break it free. The third way is you get your hammer and your chisel and you hammer on it, pointing the chisel in a counterclockwise lefty-loosey position, and you're trying to knock it loose to where you can then spin it off. But with the chisel, there's a chance that the chisel is going to skip off the plug and then go into your differential. You might mar up your differential a little bit with this technique, but it is very successful from what I've heard on the forums and from mechanics. With all that said, I hope that this video helped you out, that you found a solution to either breaking your drain plug free on your front differential of your third generation Toyota 4Runner, or it helped you figure out how to get the darn thing out so you can put new fluid in and get back on the road, four-wheeling, having fun, cruising the mall. We thank you for watching Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and special guests Ash and Wes. We'll be back. Timmy. You're welcome, Ash. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any questions or comments, do that below. Take care. Bye-bye.